They were trying to get Thomas every way they possibly could. So one of the most important things that I do as the United States Senator is make sure that we have a good judiciary. Because up till then, up until we've got this pretty much conservative court, the courts were making the laws for this country, and they were not sworn into those positions to make laws, but to interpret the laws made by those who have to stand for re-election. These are really important issues, not just the Supreme Court, but the certain courts of appeals and all of our federal district courts as well. So that's an important thing that we can't take our eyes off of. Secondly, I'm concerned about constitutional governance with regard to health care. The President has forced, by a totally partisan vote, Obamacare through the Congress of the United States. Anytime you see something that affects 1/6 of the American economy and it's forced on the people by a total partisan vote, you know it's a lousy piece of legislation. That bill is costing us an arm and a leg. As you know, we're already almost $15 trillion in debt, and the President has another $13 trillion planned to spend. Had it not been for the Tea Party, I don't believe that we would have had even the small victory that we had back there. When the debt ceiling was lifted, that was one of the few times in history where revenues were not added. That was a big victory, if you really want to know. Now, did they cut enough out of the budget? No. I don't know what the super committee is going to do, but there's even a question whether that's constitutional. Maybe Mike will give us a little bit of knowledge on that as well. I have my own views on it. But the fact of the matter is, Obamacare was supposed to save us money, and it's supposed to create jobs, and it's costing us jobs, it's costing us an arm and a leg, and they estimate it's going to cost $2.6 trillion over 10 years. And I guarantee you, if we put more and more care into the federal government, more and more health care is not going to be nearly as good as we all deserve or as we all want. We've got to fight that, and one of the things I'm going to do as chairman of the Finance Committee upon re-election is I'm going to see if we can completely repeal Obamacare and save you all that money and get something going here. I'm not giving up my position on the Judiciary Committee, where I am very concerned about the judges in this country, and it's one of the most important things. That's 1/3 of the separated powers of this country, the judiciary is. Well, let me just say this, DoddFrank. That is one of the worst bills I have ever seen in my whole time in the United States Senate. It is just awful. That's just a perfect example of bureaucrats given the authority to make laws and impose them on everybody in America. Now, let me tell you something. That bill is killing our country right now. They've only written the regulations for maybe 100 of the rules, and they've got over 375 rules, or 350 rules. There will be hundreds of thousands of pages of regulations just out of Obamacare and the DoddFrank bill. Last week I was down in Minersville, Utah, and the only banker there, he has 8 employees, came to me and said, I don't know what to do. I have somebody who wants to borrow $9,000 from the bank. He is willing to triple collateralize it. The Obama administration sent 9 regulators into this small bank in this small town in middle Utah. And when they got through it, he asked them, he said, can I make the loan? They said, we don't know. 9 regulators. Now, these people are great at building federal government employment. They're not so good at building private employment. And the President is, in the near future, is going to come out with some suggestions, and some of which appear to be he wants to establish a new cabinet for jobs, a new cabinet for competitiveness. I've sent a very strong letter to the President. We don't need any more new cabinets. What we need are jobs, and we'll get them if we cut taxes, reduce government, and get this spending under control. The last thing I'm going to mention is the Balanced Budget Constitutional Amendment. I appreciated the comments earlier. I've been at the forefront of every Balanced Budget Constitutional Amendment in the last 35 years. We've had whopping fights on the floor of the Senate. We've been able to get it through the House when we have enough Republicans there. And twice, I got it within one vote. The second time was in 1997. We had a whopping fight on the floor. I had 67 votes, the requisite number, 2/3, to pass a constitutional amendment. As I walked to the floor to give my final remarks for the amendment, when I was informed that John Hines of Pennsylvania, who had asked to be up front, who had asked to be up front at all press conference, who made a big fuss about it, but when the unions came in and said they wouldn't support him, he flipped at the last day. And we lost that with 66 votes. Now, can you imagine where we'd be today had we gotten that 67 votes? All of the states would have had the opportunity to ratify. Again, what are the Democrats afraid of? Aren't the people the ones who are supposed to run the government and run this country? We the people? Why are they so afraid to submit the balanced budget constitutional amendment to the people out there? All they have to do, if they hate the amendment, is get 13 states to go against it. Because we have to have 38 states, or 3/4 of the states, ratify. The reason that they are fighting so hard to not let it go to the states is because they know that'll create the greatest constitutional battle in history on big government. And people will finally come to the conclusion that they've got to cut back on government and give the people the rights that the people really ought to have under the Constitution. They know that we would create the greatest debate on spending that this country has ever had. Now, some encouragement. For the first time in all of the amendments that I've brought up, for the first time, we have all 47 Republicans on board. I think they've come to the conclusion that this is what we have to do. Now, we need 20 Democrats to be able to get this amendment through. We'll get it through the House. And I want to pay tribute to some of my Tea Party brethren there in the United States Senate. Mike Lee from Utah is a co-sponsor, prime co-sponsor. Marco Rubio, a prime co-sponsor. Rand Paul, a prime co-sponsor. These young people are adding a great dimension to our Senate, and it's because of the Tea Party that they are now U.S. Senators. So you can see how I feel. I feel very deeply about the Tea Party. I feel very deeply that it's playing a tremendous role. And the Tea Party Express is rambling through this whole country to let people know that it's time for the people to stand up, whether they're Democrat or Republicans. It's time to stand up, take our government back, win on these issues, and get our country under control. And I believe these folks will do it. Amy, I'm so grateful for you. Howard, I'm grateful to you. Mike, I'm grateful to you. Sal Russo, I'm grateful to you. I've known you for years. And I'm grateful for the whole Tea Party Express, and I'm grateful that it's a big movement going completely across this country, and these folks are putting in this type of time and this type of effort for our country as a whole. And I'm grateful for all of you being here this evening. God bless you all, and thanks for listening to me.